Hi, I'm Douglas Thunderhorse. This morning, while I was having my coffee in my shop, I was reminded of a story that my uncle told me many, many years ago, long before I became a flute maker. He called it the Frog Bear. He told me, he said, long ago, long, long ago, before there were any human beings on this planet, he said there were the animal people. And the animal people was split into many different tribes. There was the buffalo people, the possum people, the fox people, the wolf people. And he said, and of course, there were the frog people. He said, now the frog people built their villages down around small ponds and things like that. And he said, in one such village, there lived a very, very gifted frog. This frog could heal the other frogs. He could make them feel better spiritually. He had this wonderful gift of helping his fellow frogs. And each time he would do this, the other frogs would look to him and say, oh, you're so much more than a frog. You're a very special frog. You've got to be more than a frog. And this went on for many, many, many times. And eventually, this little frog began to think that maybe he was a little special. Maybe he was different. Maybe he was better than the other frogs. Well, one day, a frog came in to be healed. He was very, very, very sick. And the frog worked on him and worked on him and worked on him for hours and hours and hours until he finally made him well again. And the frog got up from his table and he hopped around and he says, oh, this is great. I've never felt this good before. He said, you're a very, very special frog. In fact, you're more than a frog. You're a frog bear. Well, that sounded pretty good to that little frog. He'd never referred to himself as a frog bear before. That sounded like what maybe he was, a frog bear. Much more than a frog. Well, one day, the little frog bear was hopping up from the pond when he was met by a bear coming down to get a drink. Now, the path wasn't quite wide enough for both of them to pass, so the bear very kindly, with a smile, looked down at the little frog bear and said, little frog, would you mind moving off of the path so that I may find my way to get a drink? And the frog bear stood back and said, well, I don't see why I should have to move. Can't you see that I am the frog bear? It is you that should move for me. The bear entertained his little thought and said, please, little frog, step aside. I'm very thirsty. It's very hot today. I need to get a drink. Frog bear stood up again and said, you should move for me. I'm on my way back up to my village. You need to get out of my way, bear. And with that, the bear took his paw and he swiped the frog bear right off the path, never to be seen or heard from again. That's a story the uncle told me many, many years ago. And this morning, when I was having my coffee, I'm thinking, after 30 years or so of making flutes, I think I got this thing figured out. I was very glad that I remembered that story this morning. It actually inspired this little flute right here. It's called the Frog Bear. A little C flute, but you can see that from this angle, he looks like a bear. But if you look at him this way, he's definitely a frog. So I call this little flute the Frog Bear. I wanted to share that story, especially for my brother. I've been talking to him a lot on the phone, and we've been talking about a lot of things. We're both kind of in the same place on our journey, and we were talking about some other things, and I thought maybe that story would be beneficial for him. So let me just play a little tune on this little flute. It's actually for him. So that's my frog bear. Reminds me of who I am every day. So thanks for stopping by my studio this morning, and I hope you have a wonderful day.